as President Biden threw his support behind his Vice President, Kamala Harris. Everything in politics sort of broke wide open. In the last few hours, Harris has received endorsements from just a torrent of big-name and influential Democrats, everyone from Jim Clyburn, the very influential Democratic congressman and kingmaker from South Carolina, who was so key to President Biden getting the Democratic Party's nomination for president in 2020. Everyone from Clyburn to North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper and Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, both of whom have been described as potential running mates for Kamala Harris. California Governor Gavin Newsom, himself seen as a one-day presidential contender for the Democrats. California Governor Gavin Newsom and Colorado Governor Jared Polis have also both endorsed Kamala Harris this evening for president. Just in the last few moments, Transportation Secretary and Democratic star Pete Buttigieg has endorsed Harris for president as well. Fundraising has also exploded on the Democratic side today. Again, this announcement from President Biden about leaving the race was 1:46 p.m. The group Act Blue just announced that in the first 5 hours after the announcement and President Biden endorsing Vice President Harris, in 5 hours, Act Blue announcing they took in $27.5 million in donations. The New York Times has just written that up, saying that this is the biggest day for Democratic donations online in years. The New York Times tally at this point is $30 million and counting, quoting one Democratic strategist as saying, quote, "This might be the greatest fundraising moment in Democratic Party history." At this hour, we can also newly report that President Biden's decision to not run for re-election was not related to any new medical information. That's according to a senior administration official. But again, news just breaking essentially constantly at this point as the country adjusts to this new reality. Nicole, over to you.
Yes, and watching along with us for the last few minutes, Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat from Connecticut. Senator Murphy, you've been on with us since this moment, I think, really gripped everyone in the Democratic Party, everyone who is committed to the pro-democracy side, which is a much more unwieldy coalition, not always welcome, I know. But I want to come to you about what you tweeted, this extraordinary story about Joe Biden's superpower, his empathy, and his commitment to standing with people at their lowest hours, especially people who've lost loved ones in mass shootings or school shootings. Will you tell the story you told about the post-Uvalde, post-Buffalo address?
After the 2013, 2012 shooting in Sandy Hook, Joe Biden came to Connecticut. He was scheduled to spend about a half an hour with the families, maybe an hour. He ended up spending 3 hours, not just with the Sandy Hook families, but he asked for the families of sons and daughters who have been killed in Bridgeport and New Haven and Hartford to come to this event as well. He delayed his exit from Connecticut by hours and hours because he wanted to spend time with each one of those families. This is someone who is an empath when he wakes up and goes to bed every night, who lives and breathes the experiences of people who have lost those to gun violence. So after the shooting in Uvalde, a lot of his advisors told him, you know, this just isn't the moment. Congress isn't going to do anything on guns. They haven't in 30 years. Joe Biden refused to take no for an answer. He decided to give a primetime address the week after Uvalde against the advice of many of the folks who served him in the White House because he wanted to take a chance that this time maybe something could happen. That address helped build pressure on Congress. It helped support the negotiations that I was leading. And about a month later, we passed the most significant anti-gun violence bill in the history of this country. Gun violence has plummeted since then by 20%. And so, of course, this was a very difficult decision for Joe Biden because he has been one of the most impactful, one of the most effective presidents in our lifetime. There are literally thousands of young men and women who are alive today because violence rates have dropped so significantly because of what he did. And so while this country is brimming with enthusiasm for Kamala Harris, who is going to spark a whole new generation of interest and involvement in the Democratic Party, this is also a day where we're deeply grateful that we had Joe Biden for these 4 years, the lives he saved, the ability to bring this country out of a pandemic, to restart our economy. Just an exceptional leader who has shown this country how you put America first.
And what does that campaign look like that melds those two things together? Because that feels like the other half of the history that President Joe Biden made, to take what we owe him for doing this thing that I worked in politics for 20, no politician has ever, it is a slogan. A lot of them actually believe it. I believe the people I worked for really believed it, but I've never witnessed an act where someone actually put the country and the party ahead of their own desire to serve the country and the party. So what does that campaign look like when the enthusiasm for Vice President Kamala Harris sort of melds appropriately with the sort of respect and the what we owe Joe Biden for what he did today?
Well, the reason you see this extraordinary outpouring of support, all these low donor donations, the reason why people like me who served with her have so quickly endorsed her is because she is the best of both worlds. She carries into this campaign the Biden record, and it is a damn good record. The economy is humming. There are safer streets and schools than ever before in the last decade. But she is also a new generation of leaders. She will be a historic president, the first woman president at a moment when women's rights are under assault in this country. She is a prosecutor running against a felon. And so in so many ways, she meets this moment. She is able to carry forward this record. We aren't abandoning what has happened over the last 4 years. It is extraordinary. Kamala Harris owns that record of success, but she is also able to turn the page in a historic way and take the fight to Trump in a very unique way. So I'm excited for her candidacy. I think you see the party unifying around her as we speak tonight, and we're going to be ready tomorrow to take this fight to Donald Trump. Joe Biden stepped aside because he put the country first, because he saw the threat to democracy as grave. He decided that Kamala Harris had a better chance to win. That is an extraordinary thing to do when you are the most powerful person in the world and you had a shot at victory. But Kamala Harris has a better shot. And this country is going to learn a lot about a pretty extraordinary woman over the course of the next few days and weeks.
A lot of her events over the last 3 weeks have taken place between 4 and 6 Eastern, so I've watched a lot of them. There's a real fire that she has brought to the campaign trail, while I think everyone else has been focused elsewhere, particularly on prosecuting the case against Project 2025. To your point about a prosecutor against a felon, say more about what that looks like.
So I agree with you. I actually think that Kamala Harris has been better over the last 2 to 4 weeks than I've ever seen her before. And that is a test in and of itself, right? The stakes have been high. The spotlight has been on her in a different way in the last month, and she's been better than ever before, which tells you she is going to be ready for this race. I've seen Kamala at her best. I would not want to be on the receiving end of Kamala Harris's best. That's what Donald Trump is going to get. But she has been highlighting Project 2025 because it is freaking scary. This is a document that calls for a national abortion ban, that calls for the persecution of gay and transgender kids all across this country, and that basically is the playbook for how you turn a democracy into an autocracy. Now, this country is kind of exhausted with democracy. It hasn't been giving them what they need and want. They think that what the Biden administration has done is a good start, but they aren't ready to give up on it. And the prosecutor in Kamala Harris is going to be able to effectively take this document that the Trump campaign has had the gall to put down on paper as to how they would get rid of our democracy and bring that fight to Trump and explain the consequences to the American public. I thought Joe Biden was doing that, but Kamala Harris is going to be able to do it in a tremendously effective way.
Senator Chris Murphy, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, especially on a day like today. Thank you for making some time for us.
Thank you.